Yeah, I'll send an email. Actually, there are so many books. There are books by Varahamihra. Brihad Jatakam is a great book. Then there is a book by Kalyan Varma. He was a king around the same time as Varahamihra. He was a great king. He wrote a book called Saravali. That is also a great book. And recently, I think 1600 or 1700 AD, there was a great scholar called Mantreshwara. He wrote a book called Haradipika. That is also an excellent book. There are so many good books.
Are these all available in English?
Yes, all these are available in English as English translation, and some are available in Sanskrit as well as English. And as you become more advanced, there is another classic called Jaimini Sutram. Jaimini is a Maharshi who belonged at the same time as Parasara, and some people actually say that Parasara taught one kind of astrology. They call it Parasari Jyotish. And they say that Jaimini taught another kind of astrology, Jaimini Jyotish. So some people say we are Jaimini scholars. They think that there are two different approaches. But if you look at Parasara's book that I mentioned, Brihad Parasar Hora Shastram, whatever is in Jaimini Sutram, it also finds mention in Parasara. Only thing is those concepts have been developed further by Jaimini. And today people use Parasari astrology to refer to a very, very small subset of what Parasara taught. If you use something called Arudha Charakaka, Argalas, if you use all these techniques that are attributed to Jaimini in today's thinking, all those were taught by Parasara also. But if you use them, people say you practice Jaimini astrology. So there are some misconceptions, but that classic Jaimini Sutram is extremely tough. There are rules given which are very tough to understand. There is a lot of coding in those rules. And that is a really advanced textbook. So in the long run, that is another book that you can get. But in the short run, I suggest How to Judge a Horoscope by Dr. B.V. Raman, Volume 1 and Volume 2, and Brihad Parasar Hora Shastram, just to have it as a reference. So those two books I will strongly advise. And Phalika is also a very good book by Mantreshwara. So go to www.astroamerica.com and you can get this book. And also there is a book written by me called Vedic Astrology and Integrated Approach. It was published by Sagar Publications. You can get that book also on that list.
This Vedic astrology.
Vedic Astrology and Integrated Approach. It's a very good book.
Is that for a beginner learning?
Not exactly, even though intelligent beginners can use it. The way I look at it is for people who have some basics and for who want to consolidate all their knowledge. So if you have zero beginning, it's not really that appropriate. Though I heard from some people who are beginners who read this book, they said they were happy. But that wasn't my goal when I wrote the book. Okay, nobody used the book for one other class. Okay. Namaste. Let's start with a small prayer of Ganesha, just like the last class. Om Gananandva Ganapatim Havamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamasravastamam Yesharanam Brahmanam Brahmanakvatahana Shranvannu Vidhistirakadalam Om Sri Mahaganapate Namah Om Vrashabham Chakshaninam Vishwarupamadabhyam Brahaspatim Varenyam. The second sloka that I read is a mantra. It's a Gayatri mantra for Brahaspati from Rigveda. It is from the third mandala, 62nd adhyaya, I think, and 7th sloka in that adhyaya. This is for Brahaspati, for Jupiter. It is a good mantra to read if you want to learn astrology and also get some Vakshuddhi, because Jupiter is the Karaka for the intelligence and also for Vakshuddhi. It's called Brahaspati Gayatri, and the Rishi for the mantra is Vishwamitra. Now, before we continue, I want to answer your question. In the last class, I told you that Bali Chakravarti is nothing but within ourselves, in the small context of our existence. He is basically our proud generosity. And I said that Vamana is nothing but the dwarf avatara of Vishnu, is nothing but our humility, which is born with the energy of intelligence, wisdom and discretion, which are represented by Jupiter. That is why Parashara associates Jupiter with the Vamana Avatara. And I said that when that Vamana grows and occupies the whole universe, that's when Bali's reign ends. And similarly, when humility is born within us and it fills us completely, that's when the reign of the proud generosity within us completely ends. And now, your question was, what about Parashurama? Unfortunately, one thing in India is, Parashurama is a very misunderstood or misrepresented avatara. A lot of people don't pray to him, and a lot of people think that he's just an angry man, happy to kill people. People don't really have a good appreciation of what Parashurama avatara stands for. And before I say that, how many of you don't know the story of Parashurama? Okay, a few people. So I'll briefly say the story. Parashurama was born to a Maharshi, a great sage called Jamadagni, and his father had a cow, a divine cow, which would grant all your wishes, and a king, an arrogant king called Kartavirya, he came to his ashrama once, and he was fed. He and all his people were fed by the Maharshi with the help of that cow. And then he wanted that cow for himself. He arrogantly stole that cow and took it with him. And then Parashurama went and killed the king. And then later, when Parashurama was away, the children of the king came and killed Jamadagni Maharshi. And then Parashurama went and killed all his children and also all the Kshatriyas, all the people of the warrior class in the whole world. He killed them 21 times. And then at the end of it, he came and he did a great tapasya, and then his father was alive again, and then Parashurama became a Chiranjeevi, which means he never dies, he lives forever. So that's basically the story of Parashurama. And there is also another chapter in the story that he killed his mother when his mother, she went to a river and then she saw a Gandharva king there, and she was slightly tempted, and when the Maharshi knew about it, he told his sons to kill his wife. And then Parashurama, without thinking, he just killed his mother. And then when his father was happy and asked him, what do you want? He said, please make my mother alive again. And then Jamadagni Maharshi made his wife alive again. That's basically the story. And now, if we step back and understand what this story means within us, when this story is basically unfolding in us, when it is unfolding, what is happening within us, if you want to map it in a metaphoric way, first we have to understand what Jamadagni stands for. Does anyone know what is the meaning of Jamadagni? It's basically Jamat plus Agni, that is Jamadagni. So that's burning fire. So Jamadagni means burning fire. Burning fire of what? Of jealousy or anger? Desire. He's a Maharshi. Okay. Jamadagni is a Maharshi. So it's the burning fire of sadhana, tapasya, the spiritual fire, not a materialistic fire, because he's a Maharshi. So Jamadagni Maharshi is born within us. When the burning desire of spiritual attainment, when the burning desire of tapas, sadhana is born within us. And when the desire becomes strong, that's when basically Jamadagni Maharshi within us is flourishing. He's doing his sadhana. And then, what is the meaning of Parashurama? When Jamadagni Maharshi did his tapas, Vishnu was happy with him and blessed him by being born as his son. And according to Parashara, he was born with Venusian energy, with the Amsha of Venus. And now, if you look at the metaphor for that, when this burning desire, the burning spiritual desire, Jamadagni, is born within us, Vishnu blesses us by being born within us as that happiness, the ecstasy, spiritual rapture, spiritual ecstasy. That's what Parashurama stands for. Jamadagni Maharshi stands for the spiritual desire, the burning fire of spiritual attainment, the burning fire of sadhana within us. And Parashurama within us stands for the spiritual rapture, the spiritual ecstasy. When you do great sadhana, then Vishnu comes to you as that great ecstasy. So Parashurama is basically the spiritual ecstasy. And according to the scriptures, he is a Chiranjeevi. That means once the sadhana in you reaches the peak, and Vishnu blesses you by being born within you as that ecstasy that lives forever. whatever other problems you have, whatever other drawbacks you have, will be fixed by that happiness that you have, the supreme happiness. And now first let's go back to the link with Venus. Do you see any link with Venus now, between Parashurama and Venus? Shukra, Venus stands for happiness, the spirit of enjoyment, spirit of being happy. So this rapture, the spiritual rapture or ecstasy is a form of the same thing. Just like I said, Vamana or humility is a form of intelligence, discretion and wisdom. The spiritual ecstasy is a form of enjoyment that is represented by Venus. You had a comment?
Yeah, a question actually. The Deva, the governing Deva is Lakshmi here.
Yeah.
Is that in many way related to the...
That is not related to the stories that I am saying. The relation that I am bringing out is Vishnu was born with that energy. When you say Lakshmi is the goddess, it doesn't mean that Lakshmi has the energy of Venus or some other god has the energy of Saturn. That's not what it means. What it means is to get results from that planet, you pray to that god. So the story there is a different story. But here what I am saying is, in the case of Parashurama, it was clearly mentioned by Parashura that Vishnu was born with Venusian energy as Parashurama, with Jupiterian energy as Vamana, with Saturnine energy as the tortoise, the turtle form, the Kurma Avtara. Like this he linked each energy, planetary energy with each Avtara. So that's what I am talking about here.
So because Lakshmi is with consort, I thought there may be a connection there.
Well, then she's a consort of all these Avtara. So there's no link like that, unfortunately. Now going back into the story, basically the wife, like I said earlier, the male, you have to understand the distinction between male and female. The male energy of the universe just exists in a vacuum. It is the ahamkara, it is the existence. And then the female energy of anything, whether intelligence or enjoyment or whatever you are talking about, whichever god you are talking about, the female energy of the god is basically the maya. It's the manifestation of that energy. It is due to the female element that anything manifests finally. So this spiritual fire, the fire that Jamadagni represents within us, is manifested as our perceivable tapasya, perceivable sadhana as Renuka Devi, as his wife. So when that manifestation when your actual sadhana has a small temptation, then the fire within you wants to kill that sadhana and make it reborn in a pure way. So that's what Parashurama killing his mother represents. It doesn't represent any papa, but it just represents making it alive again in a pure way. The sadhana within you. And then Kartavirya, let's go to Kartavirya, the king who created problem for Jamadagni, who spoiled the whole story and make it take a turn. Now what does Kartavirya represent within you? Kartavirya is the son of Kritavirya. He was another great king. Kartavirya is the arrogant son of Kritavirya. Kritavirya, what does it mean? Literally, the word in Sanskrit. It means, Krita means done, Virya means brave deed. So one who has done a brave deed. So that basically Kritavirya within us represents the victory. When you did a brave or great thing, that victory, that achievement that comes within you, that feeling of achievement, that is represented by Kritavirya. When you do anything and when you have that feeling within you, that means King Kritavirya is ruling within you. And then his son, what comes from that achievement? The arrogance. So when you achieve something and when you are arrogant about it, that's when Kartavirya or Kartavirya Arjuna, that king, is basically strong within you. And when that king goes to the ashrama of Jamadagni, there was a problem. And then what does it mean in the metaphorical terms that I am projecting right now? When that arrogance of achieving something touches your spiritual sadhana, when it comes in touch with your spiritual sadhana suffers because of it. It is robbed of purity. When that arrogance of achievement comes to you, your spiritual sadhana is robbed of purity. Purity is basically the kamadhenu, the surabhi, the cow that he had, the cow that grants all the wishes that the Maharshi had in his ashram. That was the source of all his strength. That was the source of getting whatever he wanted. It was the purity of the spiritual sadhana. So that purity has been robbed by the arrogance, by King Kartavirya. And then, of course, Parashurama doesn't like it. The supreme happiness that you experience out of the spiritual sadhana, out of that burning desire. The burning desire joined with your tapasya, Renuka Devi, and then this happiness was born. And this happiness, supreme happiness, does not like any of this. So he will kill the arrogance, he will kill all the Kshatriya qualities within you, jealousy, revenge, all the qualities within you, all the Kshatriya qualities are completely cut off by the axe. The axe was given by Paramashiva to Parshurama. Again there is a symbolism that the weapon he uses is not an arrow, it's an axe which just cuts off. So mercilessly, Parshurama cuts off all the Kshatriya qualities within you, all qualities like, Kshatriya is basically a warrior. So what are the qualities that warriors need? Some kind of arrogance. Without arrogance you won't go and fight with somebody. Arrogance, jealousy, revenge, all these negative qualities. There may be positive qualities in some other context, but in the context of spiritual sadhana, in the context of Jamanagni, all these are bad qualities. So, when the spiritual rapture is born within you, spiritual ecstasy is born within you, it will eventually kill all the warrior-like qualities within you and make you pure. That's why even though Parshurama is regarded by some people as an angry man who goes around killing people, he is a great Maharshi. He is supposed to become one of the Saptarshi for the next Manvantara. He was blessed to become a Maharshi, a Saptarshi, one of the 7 great Rishis for the next Manvantara. He is waiting. He is a Chiranjeevi and he is waiting for his turn to be a Saptarshi. So that is basically the symbolism. And another, somebody else asked about Varaha Avtara, I forget who. I'll mention that also and then we'll move on to the astrology part. Varaha Avtara. Does everybody know the story of Varaha Avtara? Earth was sinking in ocean, whatever that means, because there's no ocean it's just universe, it's just vacuum. But basically Earth is moving away from its orbit and there was going to be chaos, and then a small pig or boar came from the nostril of Brahma and then it became big, and then that is Varaha Avtara or Sukra Avtara, and then that boar killed the demon who caused all this chaos to happen, and then Earth was saved again. That's the story. And now to look at the symbolism of that, to the metaphor within our existence of the story, the living representation of the story within us. To look at that, what you have to understand is, if you look at the sheets that I gave you last week, for Rahu I said deceit. He lives within us as deceit. Deceit is one of the forms of Rahu, but more importantly than that, he represents the strong desire. Like I said at the end of last class, Rahu and Ketu are 2 polarities. They are 2 opposites. Ketu stands for moksha. He stands for, what is moksha? Even the desire of moksha is not moksha. If you have a desire to get moksha, you still have a desire. Moksha is a state of desirelessness. You don't desire anything, you have everything. You realize who you are, and then you don't want to do anything. That means not being lazy, but you are completely above desire. That is moksha. So Ketu represents moksha or desirelessness, being above desire, and Rahu represents being caught in so many desires. So that is why Parashara teaches that Rahu is the cause of rebirth. In any chart, when you look at Rahu, you will see why that person was born. There is a chart called Shashyamsa, which shows your last life and also the karma that you get from your last life and also last several lives. So in that chart, if you look at Rahu's position, you will know exactly what strong desire was behind being born again. If you don't have any desire, you will not be born again. There is a strong desire. Maybe you were not rich enough in the last life, you want to become rich, or maybe you want to take revenge on your wife of last life, or maybe in the case of my guru, for example, he wants to establish Jyotish knowledge. He was taught Jyotish knowledge by his guru in last life, but he did not spread that knowledge as his guru wished. He was caught in some other things. So in this life, if you look at his Shastamsa, you will clearly see that there is a strong desire to establish Sanatana Dharma and also Jyotish knowledge. So like that, it can be positive, it can be negative. It can even be getting moksha. Somebody may have a strong desire to get moksha, so he will be born again to try to get moksha. So, like that, Rahu represents the strong desire you have, and Ketu represents being above all the desires, overcoming all the desires, and that is moksha, or liberation, emancipation. And now, the symbol is now coming to the symbolism of the story. of Rahu and Varaha. Why Parashara associated Rahu with the Varaha avatar? The thing is, the earth that is sinking in the ocean basically represents the embryo. When a person is created, the embryo is in the womb, in that whatever that water is called, within the amniotic fluid. Yeah, amniotic fluid. Within that, the embryo is there, and the soul enters that embryo. And when the soul enters the embryo, it's totally confused. It starts wondering, should I continue? Should I take birth? What is the point? There is a lot of confusion that the soul goes through. And then it is this strong desire that you have, the particular thing that you wanted to do but could not do. The strong desire is what binds the soul to that embryo and makes that embryo live. That is why there is a dasha called Vimshottari dasha, which is computed from the position of moon. In a later class we will talk about that dasha. Basically what dashas do is they divide your life into various periods. You have a period that is ruled by Saturn, when Saturn will give its results predominantly. There is a period of Venus, when Venus will give its results predominantly. Like that, there are periods, and within each period, there are sub-periods, when different planets join with that main planet and give their own results. So there are these dashas and antardashas within your life, and those are computed from the position of moon in your chart. But scholars teach that when you find a compressed Vimshottari dasha, not for 100 or 120 years, but just for 9 months of your existence in a womb, if you know the time when conception happened, and if you find dashas for those 9 months to see important events when you are in the womb, what you do is you don't use moon, you use sun. Because, like I said sometime back, moon shows mind and sun shows soul. And when you exist in a womb, mind is not fully developed yet. And it is the soul that decides your stay there. Soul is the key factor when somebody is in an embryo, as a tissue. So soul is the most important thing there, and the soul is bound because of a strong desire from the last life. So that is the symbolism. The Varaha Avatara is basically Vishnu is born within us just when we are created by Brahma. That's why he comes from the nostril of Brahma. Because this Avatara of Varaha happens when you are created, just after Brahma creates you. It doesn't happen when you are in the middle of your life. It happens at the beginning of your life. That's why he comes from the Svasa, the Nishvasa of Brahma. When Brahma breathes out, that's when he created us. And that's when Varaha also comes. And then first he is born as a small desire from last life. And then as the embryo becomes more and more confused, the desire becomes big and then kills that confusion within you and then keeps the embryo intact so that you take your birth and go through go through your life and achieve whatever desires that you wanted to achieve. So that is why this avatara is associated with Varaha, not with a horse or a lion or a tiger or some other animal, but with a filthy animal, Varaha. Because Rahu is a filthy graha, so to say, because he represents the desire which is making us take birth again and again and again. So that is why this avatara is associated with a filthy animal, but it is an important part of our existence. Without that strong desire, there will be chaos, and you are in an embryo. And Tony, any question?
Yeah. What happens in case of abortion? That means the Rahu is weak.
Yeah, in the Rahu in the Shashtyamsa will be weak, and also Sun has to be strong too, not just Rahu. Soul has to be strong. And it also depends on the relationship between Sun and Rahu. And you need the conception chart for that.
But Sun and Rahu are enemies as per the creativeness.
They are enemies, yes.
So how they can live together when they are enemies?
Right, that is the thing. Sun does not want to be born again. The soul does not want to be born again. The soul wants moksha. But Rahu, he just forces the soul to not get moksha.
So in a situation where the embryo is not viable,
Yeah.
Does that mean the sun is very strong in the conception chart? Because it does achieve.
More than strong, it depends on the mutual relationship between Sun and Rahu. If Rahu is in a place where he can, if he is in a trine from Sun, we'll see what trine means later, where he can influence Sun, where he can exert influence on Sun, he will exert the influence. Otherwise, if Rahu is, for example, in Shadashtaka from Sun, again we'll know what it means later, then it can be weak. And also there are other things called Charakarkas which are also important. both in birth charts as well as conception charts. We will slowly go through them. But the lesson to remember is, Rahu is the cause of rebirth, he shows strong desire, and Ketu is the cause of not being born again, cause of moksha.
So how do we relate this to the Rashi chart of a person saying this life, if anybody's desires are not completed, would that mean that Rahu played a role, that Rahu was somehow weak in the Rashi chart? How do you...
If he did not, what?
If one's desires doesn't complete, that means that he's tend to get another birth again.
Yeah.
Would that somehow imply that Rahu was related in that, or whether Rahu was weak in that Rashi chart?
Yes, it would mean. It would mean that. And in general, somebody has a strong Rahu. If somebody has a strong Rahu, usually they have a lot of comforts, their desires are fulfilled. If somebody has a weak Rahu, they will be struggling. And also, like I said in the last class, there is always a clash. Rahu and Ketu are opposite each other. They never meet and they keep going around the zodiac, actually in opposite direction. There is always a puzzle between Rahu and Ketu. Depending on other planets, how they associate with either Rahu or Ketu, sometimes moksha will be strong, the spirituality will be strong within us, sometimes materialism will be strong. So we are always torn between the desire for the tendency to overcome desires and also the tendency to be caught within desires. We are always torn between those, especially if Rahu and Ketu are strong. We'll talk about all these things more later. I just wanted to clarify one thing. In the last class, I mentioned about the relationships between planets, and I said that there is something called permanent relationship, and those are fixed. Each planet has mitra or friend, and I said sama or neutral, and then satru or enemy. And I said, based on the temporary placement of a particular planet, I said the planets in the 3 signs before it or the 3 signs after it. Let's say this is the chart. Let's say a planet is here let's say. Then planets in this sign, this sign and this sign, this sign, this sign and this sign. These 6 signs become temporarily friends. As far as the chart is concerned, they are friends. They are temporary friends. So, let me write it here. Mitra, Shatru. So, what you do is, for Mitra you give a score of +1, for Sama you give a score of 0, for Shatru you give a score of -1, and for here, temporary relationship, again for Mitra you give +1, for Sama you give -1. And now what you do is, you add them up, add the 2 scores. And then when you add it, you either get +2 or +1 or 0 or -1 or -2. You get one of these 5 scores when you add those 2 scores. And then based on what the score is, the compound relationship, combining the natural permanent relationship as well as temporary relationship, you combine them and the relationship called compound relationship is derived for each planet pair. So +2 means Adhimitra, great friend, good friend, and +1 means Mitra or just a friend, 0 means Sama, neutral, -1 means Satru or enemy, and -2 means Adhisatru, worst enemy. And naturally, this is the order. If a planet is in a house owned by its good friend, then the planet is strong. On the other hand, if a planet is in a house that is owned by its worst enemy, then the planet is badly placed. And we'll see who owns which sign a little later. So, I mentioned how Adhisatru, Adhimitra are derived, but if I mention these scores, it just becomes easier to imagine. And now to understand, to make sure that you understood it, I'll give a sample chart and let's go through the compound relationships of planets, okay? The chart that I'm going to draw, typically in India, whenever somebody learns astrology, they start with this chart. We don't know if this chart is accurate, reliable or not, but this is the chart of Lord Sri Rama. Because there's a little bit of controversy. He's supposed to have born in Pushmi Nakshatra on Shukla Navami, and people take his sun in exaltation in Aries, and on Navami it is not possible if you take moon to be in Punarvasu Nakshatra. So there is some problem with this chart, but Punarvasu.
He corrected his and he told second time. First time he told Pushmi.
Oh, did I say? Yeah. Pushmi actually makes sense based on Chaitra Navami, but people say it's Punarvasu. And some people argue that it's not Moon's Nakshatra, but Lagna's Nakshatra is Punarvasu, and Moon is in Pushmi. There are different opinions. But I'll just draw the chart that people use. So this is ascendant, Lagna, it is Cancer, Moon is there, Jupiter is there, Mars is here, Saturn is here, Sun is here, Venus is here, I think Mercury is here, with Ketu, Rahu is here. Just write down this chart in your notebook. Actually, there is a belief in some parts of India that if you write down this chart on a paper and put it in your puja room or put it in your house, it is auspicious. That is the belief in some parts of India. Basically, this is a great chart, and people like to start learning with this chart. So let's take this chart. And does everybody have the paper from the last class? I have a few extra papers that I brought. Those of you who don't have it can just, thank you. Pardon me? Yeah? Oh, he's not in Gemini? Oh, okay. I think that's right. So Upada will be, no, actually the chart that I am told is Mercury is here.
So we just make corrections here.
Yeah. Mercury is here. Upada is in the Venus, yeah. Now if you look at this chart,
What is the AF stands for?
ascendant or lagna. That is the sign that is rising in the east at that part. So now what I will ask you is, look at moon. Let's find who are friends of moon, good friends of moon, enemies of moon, worst enemies of moon, and neutrals of moon. Okay, we'll go through moon. So first look at the natural relationship. Okay, who are the friends of moon? If you look at the table in the sheet, who are the friends of moon?
Sun and Mercury.
Sun and Mercury, right? So, out of Sun and Mercury, they already have a score of +1 because they are friends based on permanent relationship. So, let's see out of those who is promoted to Admitra, who stays as Mitra, and who goes down as a neutral.
So isn't Saturn also friend?
Pardon
In
me?
relation
Saturn is
to who?
Moon. We are looking at who are Moon's friends and enemies, etc.
3 houses on each side, don't you?
No.
No, I'm talking about natural relationship.
Okay.
So, if you look at Moon,
Okay.
based on natural relationship,
Sun and Mercury.
Mercury and Sun and Mercury. These are the friends. So they already have a score of +1, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at Sun, is he in the 3 signs adjoining Moon? Moon is here, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
He is in the 3rd sign. So he gets a score of another +1 based on temporary placement. So his score is +2. So what is he? Is he a good friend or friend?
Admitra.
He is an Admitra. So Sun and Moon have a very good relationship. And secondly, Mercury. What about Mercury?
He's also
He is also in these adjoining 3 signs. For Moon, this. These are the adjoining 3 signs on both the directions. So Sun and Mercury are Admitras. Now let's go to Samas. Who are the Samas or neutrals for Moon according to the table that I gave you? All other planets.
Yeah.
Mars, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn. Note that Moon does not have any enemies permanently. Yes.
This chart we are comparing with the moon.
We are taking Moon and seeing who are his permanent friends and seeing out of those who are friends in this chart also. Because I said there are 2 kinds of relationships, permanent and temporary. From the point of view of temporary relationship, all the planets in the signs with a tick, the 3 signs before and the 3 signs after, they become temporarily friends of Moon. And all other planets, they become enemies temporarily. Okay, that is temporary relationship in a chart. And in addition to that, there is a permanent relationship, which is fixed for Moon. Irrespective of where he is in a chart, always Moon has Mercury and Sun as his friends, other planets as his neutrals. If you look at the table, if you have the sheet from the last class, look at the table, those relationships are always true for any person. And in addition, for your chart, there are temporary relationships based on the position. So you combine the two scores. If there is a +1 and +1, they combine and become +2. He becomes a good friend. If there is a score of +1 from one table and 0 from the other table, they combine together to just remain +1, which is just a friend.
But why we started with moon?
I just wanted to take moon. We could have taken any other planet as well. I just want to take one example. Take moon and see what is the relationship of moon with all other planets. And now, out of Mars, Jupiter, Venus and Saturn, all these are neutrals. And let's see out of them, who are friends now also, in this chart also. Saturn. So he gets 0 plus 1. So he becomes +1. He becomes a friend. Saturn becomes a friend. What about Jupiter? Why? Same house I told you, just like husband and you are good with your neighbors, but you are not good with your wife or your people who are in the same house. So similarly, if you are close, that is good, but too close, that is bad. Again, you become enemies. So in the same sign are other 5 signs. Together, all those 6 signs are enemies. So Jupiter becomes an enemy temporarily.
So -1.
-1. So +1 and -1. They combine to become 0.
0 minus 1.
Oh, sorry. What is 0? Yeah, 0. Sorry. So 0 and -1. So he becomes an enemy. Jupiter becomes an enemy of Moon. And then Mars. What about Mars? Same. Because he's in these signs which don't have a tip.
Yeah.
More than 3 signs away from Moon. So Mars also becomes an enemy. So he has a score of 0 from permanent relationship and a score of -1 from temporary relationship, and then this becomes -1.
So, if he is not a temporary friend, he becomes an enemy automatically.
No. Like I said, you combine the 2 scores. Because they have a score of 0, they became enemies. But had he been a permanent friend and temporary enemy, it becomes +1 -1. It becomes 0. So he becomes an enemy.
Why is the -1 there? It's 0.
-1 because it's enemy, temporary.
enemy.
Is away from the.
Because he's not
Okay.
He's in the other signs. So basically what happens is any planet here gets +1. Here +1, here +1, here +1, here +1, here +1. Everywhere else he gets -1 because he's an enemy.
Now how
Including here.
Including there, okay.
Including there. So you combine this score with the permanent score and then you get a compound score. And actually at this point of view I think in the next for the next class I'll try to burn some CDs of the software and get them here, because if you have the full software, not the free software that you can download from the internet, if you have the full commercial software, it will make it easy because you click on a particular planet, you can click the right mouse and say show the compound relationships. It will show these planets in different colors, dark green, dark red, so that you know who are good friends, who are friends. So you can compare with the software you're thinking and you can learn fast. So I'll just get the CDs and give them to you. But try to go through some examples and then you will understand it better. Always when you hear something, it will feel like you understood it, but once you start trying it on a chart, you will be confused. It always happens. Now let's take one more example.
Venus is also -1?
Yes, Venus is also -1.
So only Saturn becomes the friend.
Right.
I want to do some homework on the at least we can practice subsequent.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Why don't
Otherwise,
you?
it will be you explaining and we listening and.
Right. Good idea. That's a good idea. So what I want you to do is note down this chart, and if you have a problem, don't blame me. Blame him. The homework is, if you can do it, and I'll randomly ask a few of you to see what you came up with. List the Adhimitras, Mitras, Samas, Shatrus and Adhishatrus for Mars.
All 5 relationships.
Yeah, all 5 relationships for Mars and Saturn, let's say. Mars and Saturn.
For this chart.
For this chart, for Srirama's chart, for Mars and Saturn, find the relationships.
Now or homework?
Homework.
Both are there.
Now, we didn't talk about Ketu and Rahu.
Yeah.
Do we need to?
Well, it's not given in the literature. And what some people do is, they use the same relationships of Saturn for Rahu and the relationship for Mars for Ketu. That's what some people do. But it's arguable. There is no information in Parasara actually.
So Rahu takes on the thing of Saturn.
Yeah, Rahu is like Saturn.
Rahu.
Rahu and Ketu.
So Rama's this one is very, he has a lot of enemies.
Why?
Because all are minus ones, like 5 minus.
Moon has a lot of enemies.
Yeah.
Not Rama. Not Rama. Rama is not Moon. Yeah.
No, but I'm sure we should see some relationship with Ravana here.
Yeah, we'll see that later when we go to houses, not right now.
The total can only be one, isn't it? It's not all 5. When you said find out all 5 Adimitra, Mitra.
Yeah.
All
Who are Admitras, who are Mitras?
Mars.
2 Mars. Find out for Mars, look at all the 7 planets, ignore Rahu and Ketu. Look at other planets. Find the relationship of Mars, the combined relationship of Mars with all the planets.
Okay.
So for Mars, for example, I think Sun will be Adhimitra, maybe Jupiter will be Sama, like that. You find out the relationship of Mars with all other planets. And Saturn also. Okay. So we will stop that and we will start talking about houses. In case some of you did not print out the handout that I emailed to you 2 days back, there are a few extra copies. Somebody can distribute them to those who need them. Actually, your mail bounced. The 3 mails that I sent to Hotmail addresses bounced. I think, yeah, you also bounced, yeah. You too bounced. I think you also bounced from Hotmail.
No, but
This time it bounced, but I sent it to your email address.
Oh, this is not the one.
No, the other one. This figure. It has a weird figure at the end of the page. Yeah, Rangoli.
Can I have one?
I have an extra also.
Yeah. Yeah, if anybody has extra, please pass them on. Yeah, your bounce and I didn't have an alternate email address, so I just put it in. That's why I got a few extra copies. And also I don't have the email addresses of all of you. Please send an email to PVR, those are my initials, at net. Send an email to this address, I'll add you to the list and I'll send all the handouts to you. If you use a Hotmail address, I think all the mails I send to Hotmail bounce, so there is quota problem. Yeah, there is some problem. So
nowadays, not downloading any attachments.
yeah, so if you have, this is a PDF file, but anyway, if you have any other address, I prefer that than the Hotmail address. Okay, now we will talk about houses. They are also called, in the Sanskrit term is bhava and the English term is house. And what you do here is, from any reference, when you have a particular reference, starting from that sign, you start counting first house, second house, third house, fourth house, and so on. And when I say reference, the reference can be anything. It can be your lagna, it can be your moon, it can be your sun. You can take anything as a reference. But the standard reference is lagna, because lagna is your entire existence. Moon is your mind. Jupiter in your chart shows your intelligence. Venus in your chart shows your enjoyment, your happiness, your spirit of enjoyment. So you can take any of those as reference and count houses, but the default reference is lagna, because that is entire you, not just your happiness or your intelligence or your learning ability, but the entire you. So we take lagna as the reference and count houses from it. Let's say somebody's lagna is in Aries. Some people just put a line instead of writing AS or LA to show lagna or ascendant, just put a line. So let's say this is the lagna, and when you count the houses, this will be the first house. Where will be the second house? It will be the next time. Second house, third house, fourth house, fifth house, sixth house, seventh house, eighth house, ninth house, 10th house, 11th house, and 12th house. So there are 12 houses like this. And if you look at the literature, for example, if you go through the book that I mentioned, How to Judge a Horoscope, for each house, he gives a big list of things that the house stands for. For example, when you say second house, it stands for your money, it stands for your family, it stands for your speech, it stands for so many things. If you say fourth house, it stands for your learning, education, it stands for your mother, it stands for your heart, it stands for your house, it stands for your car, it stands for your sukha, comfort, it stands for so many things. So each house has so many different meanings. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through the basic axiom from which all the meanings are derived. This is the basic thing. This is the fundamental axiom.
But one of the things that confuses me a lot about what each house represents is the fact that there doesn't seem to be a natural grouping, if you will. They have siblings in one house and mother and father. Why can't they have all the family in one place? All material things?
Because all the family don't have the same influence on you. All these things, all these houses and their meanings are based on what is their impact on you. And also, when you say house, the same house can have a different meaning based on which reference you are taking. When you take Lagna as the reference and find houses from it, or when you take Moon as the reference and find houses from it, or Jupiter as the reference and take houses from it, the meanings will be different because the things that the intelligence is interested in, the things that the mind is interested in, the things that the physical body is interested in are totally different. So the same planet, when it is in a particular house, the impact it creates on mind is different, the impact on intelligence is different, the impact on body is different, the impact on soul is different. So the meaning of a house, the exact meaning of a house, depends on which chart you are looking at. Is it the Rashi chart of physical existence? Is it the Dashamsha of career? Is it the Siddhamsha of learning? Depending on which chart you are looking at, the meanings will differ. And also based on the difference, is it Lagna or Moon? What is the difference you are taking when counting houses? Based on that, the meaning will differ. So there are so many factors which decide what is the exact meaning of a particular house. So that is why in the literature, they don't make all these distinctions. They just give you the whole list. And they expect you to figure out which meaning applies where. That is what Parashara and other sages, they expect you. Because they lay out all the basics. They say, hey, if you want about parents, look at D12. If you want about children, you look at D7, the chart called D7, Saptamsha. They give you all the details. And they say, hey, Moon shows mind, Sun shows soul, Jupiter shows intelligence, Lagna shows your entire existence. So they gave you all the parameters. And then when he says, oh, fifth house shows this, he expects you to understand which applies where. So we will go through it slowly. But the thing is, before even going through the list, if I give you the basic axiom, what is the meaning of each house, then you can derive everything by yourself. As you apply your mind and contemplate more on it, you'll be able to derive. So I want to give the basics rather than dumping the whole list on you. So the basics for that is, the houses are divided into 4 groups. And the 4 groups, like I wrote here, if you look at basic meanings of houses, there are 3 groups. One group is called Dharma Trikonas, one group is called Artha Trikonas, one group is called Kama Trikonas, one group is called Moksha Trikonas. So there are 3 houses which stand for things related to Dharma, and 3 houses which stand for things related to Artha, and 3 houses for Kama, 3 houses for Moksha. And for those of you who don't know, these 4 things are very basic in Hindu philosophy. These are called Purusharthas. These are, Artha means purpose. Purushartha means purpose of a man or purpose of a being. These are the purposes for which you exist. And from your existence, that is from Lagna, when you find various houses, you look at various Purusharthas. So you can see that each Purushartha is mapped to the so-called Trikonas. For example, Dharma is from this, or I will probably use another color. Dharma is this one, 5 and 9. Can you see that they are at equal distance? They are like a triangle. If you combine 1, 5 and 9, they form a triangle. That's why it's called Trikona, Dharma Trikona. This is the triangle of Dharma. In this triangle you see Dharma, a person's Dharma. And then, I don't have so many colors, but I just try another color for Artha. So for Artha, these 2, 6 and 10. Can you see that this is another triangle? From here if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. From here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. From here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you take these 3 houses in the Artha Trikona, the distance from one to another is a constant. It's 5 houses away. So this triangle is the Artha Trikona. This is the triangle in which you see somebody's Artha. And then similarly, the next triangle will be Kama. 3, 7, 11.
One basic
Again triangle. This is
you
kama.
always count the house that you're starting from.
Yes.
It's not the next house.
It's not the next house. If this is Lagna, this is the first house itself.
So you count 1, 2, 3,
Yes.
4, 5.
Yes. And finally, moksha. And black, writing moksha with black. Okay. So these 4, 8 and 12, these 4 houses are moksha trikona. This is the triangle of moksha. Now, before we proceed further, to get the correct understanding of these houses, you need to understand what dharma, artha, kama, moksha means. What is the meaning of dharma? Dharma is roughly translated in today's language. We use it to mean duty, right? But strictly speaking, dharma basically means the rules that you have to obey. Dharma, like I said here, I associated dharma with one word, how, artha with what, kama with why, and moksha is freedom. So what dharma means is how you do things. What are the rules that you have to obey? So that is the dharma. Whatever you do, what are the rules that you have to obey? What are the principles that you have to follow? Those are shown by all the three houses in Dharma Trikona. Dharma stands for the rules to obey, the principles to satisfy, the how part of what you do. And then artha. In today's language, artha is supposed to mean money, but there is only one meaning. That is a derived meaning. That is not the original meaning. The original meaning of artha is purpose. The actual meaning is, if you say artham, siddhyartham, when you do puja, you say dharma, dharma, moksha, chaturveda, phala, purushadha, siddhyartham. Artham means fur. Artham means, the literal meaning of artham is fur. It basically means the purpose. So, artha, the purushartha of artha, it shows the purpose of your existence. It shows what you have to do. Dharma shows how you have to do it, and artha shows what you have to do. And then kama, that shows why you have to do. There is a why part of it.
What artha is?
Pardon me?
Kama is why?
Artha is what? It's basically the purpose that you have to serve. Artha is the purpose you have to serve. Dharma is the rules that you have to obey while you serve your purpose. And artha is the purpose you have to serve. But even while you serve a purpose, sometimes there is some selfishness. There is the thought of, why should I do it? What will I get out of it? So that motivating thing, that why part of it is the kama. That's the desire. Kama literally means desire. This is basically, desire is what motivates you. That is why you do something. And then finally moksha means being above the desire. That is the end of desire. So these are the 4 purusharthas. And another important hint is, in each purushartha, there are 3 houses, right? There are 3 houses that show that purushartha. Now the meaning of those 3 houses is, the first one that shows the seed of the purushartha. Whatever activities, whatever that purushartha governs, whatever things are shown by it, the seed of those things. That is the first house. And the middle house is the activity, all the activity. Based on the seed, some activity has to go on. So that activity is seen from the middle house. And the last house is the culmination point. That is the result of all the things related to that purushartha. When I go through some examples, whatever I just now said will become more clear. So we'll do that. Actually, I'll do one thing. I'll just pause. I'll just stop. The thing is, in the last 2 classes, I recorded the whole class. The problem with that is it becomes a big 30 megabyte file. And if I stop after one hour and start after a couple of minutes, it will be 2 files basically. Okay, I'll start again.
It takes 2 hours downloading.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
The second house, the aerodynamic, the purpose of
Activity.
the activity.
First one is, it's actually written here.
Oh, sorry.
In each trikona, the 3 houses show the seed, focus point, and the culmination. So those are the meanings. And now, let's first start with dharma. So when you say the rules that have to be obeyed, when doing a particular thing, the rules are not constant. The dharma is not constant. In Kali Yuga, we use the dharma of Mars. We use the out of Shaddarsinas. Mars stands for Nyaya. He stands for justice. He stands for applying a uniform policy. That is what Mars stands for. And Mars is the planet of Kali Yuga. That is why in Kali Yuga, the Martian Dharma is very popular. If you go to any court, the justice that they follow, the laws that they follow are uniform. The same law is applied to every human being. But if you look at the dharmas of older yugas, they did not have the same rules for everybody. For a peasant on the street, there was a different law. For the king, there was a different law. For a very, very learned Brahmin, there will be a different law. Because you are learned, you are not supposed to commit any sin. You know what is the result of a sin. You are not supposed to commit a sin. But for a normal person, it is less offensive to engage in the same sin. So what are the sins, what are the punishments, what are the laws that you have to obey? All these things depend on who you are. So when your dharma, when the rules that you have to obey are decided, the seed of that is yourself, who you are. That is the seed. That is why first house, your entire existence, who you are, the definition of you, that basically goes towards defining your dharma. So that is the seed from which your dharma is defined. And then from that seed, the focus point, the next house, if you look at the middle house, the next house is fifth house. So from who you are, your abilities, your purva punya, all those things are defined from fifth house. Based on who you are, your abilities, etc. are defined. If you are, for example, a person born in a learned family of learned Brahmins, you will have some learning, you will have some intelligence that naturally comes to you. So those things, all those things are shown in the fifth house. So fifth house is the house of abilities. Abilities are the what stems from the seed, what comes from who you are. And then based on the abilities, you decide your dharma. So this is the culmination point. The ninth house actually shows your dharma, the rules that you have to obey, what you are supposed to do, how you are supposed to do it, the rules that you have to, the principles that you have to uphold, the righteousness, even the religiousness, all these things, they are your dharma and they are shown from the ninth house. And your abilities go a long way in deciding that. Based on your abilities, you have a different dharma. I know, by God's grace, I know some astrology. So my dharma is to spread it. Somebody else may not know astrology. So it's not his dharma. So my dharma is defined based on my abilities. So fifth house shows abilities. It also shows your panditya, your scholarship, shows your intelligence, your intellect. There are so many things that it shows. We will eventually go through them. But the basic meaning is who you are, what your abilities are, and what your dharma is. The rules that you have to obey. And then second house, second, sixth and 10th. If we come to that, these are the Artha Trikonas. This is the purpose that you have to serve. So if you have to serve a purpose, for example, I am holding a class, I am teaching astrology. This is a purpose that I am serving in society. And the dharma I am following is I have to do it freely. I can't take money. This is sacred knowledge. So I can't accept any money. I have to do it freely. So that is my dharma. And I have to teach. I have to spread this knowledge. That is the artha. That is the purpose that I am serving. And to serve any purpose, to do your thing in the society, what is the basic thing that you need? What is the seed of all your activities? Some resources. Perfect. Oh, did you look at it? Okay. I thought you guessed it. So, the resources. So second house, it shows you resources. It can be your family. Your resources can come from family. It can be money. Money is also a good resource. It's not a bad resource at all. So money is one resource. Is speech a resource? Yeah, that's actually the only resource for my current activity. Speech is the only resource. So speech is another resource. So all the resources are seen from the second house. And then if I have resources, can that result in some karma? Can that result in some work? No. I have to work. I have to overcome some obstacles. To use those resources and perform some activity, always there are some obstacles. Obstacle doesn't have to be a negative or bad thing. For example, arranging for a room, talking to somebody, getting a room arranged for this class, all these are obstacles. So all these obstacles are seen from the sixth house.
Or is it a to-do list?
It's like to-do list, yeah. The to-do list to go through.
Get things done.
Yes. The sixth house is your to-do list. And sometimes the to-do list can include really big obstacles as well. And sometimes it can be some enemies also. To do something, you may have enemies. So this is also the house of enemies, the 6th house. There are again so many different meanings.
When you say 6th house is to do this karma, it depends upon which planet is in that house or how.
That house itself shows the obstacles that you have to overcome to do some karma. And now, depending on which planet is there, that planet will contribute. That planet will contribute to your overcoming of obstacles. So depending on which planet is there, you will see whether that person is good at overcoming obstacles and doing things or not.
Suppose no planet is there.
Then the Lord of that house. The Lord of that house. The planet who owns that house. And as a matter of fact, not just that, but at the end of this page, we have a complete list of various influences. There can be some planets who are aspecting it, that means looking at it. There are some planets who are causing so-called argada on it, which is a decisive intervention. So there are so many ways in which a planet can give results related to a house, not just by being there. Somebody doesn't have to be in this room to basically contribute to this class. For example, my teacher, Pandit Sanjay Dutt, he is in Puri. Actually, right now he is going to Singapore for a workshop. But he is somewhere else in Asia. He is not here. Is he contributing to this class? Yes, he is. He taught me, I am teaching you. So, similarly, also the people who own this place, they are not right now here. But they have a big contribution, just like the planet who owns this house, even though it's empty. So who are there in that house are only one aspect. There are actually more important aspects. When you judge a particular house, who is giving results related to that house, who is giving good results, who is giving bad results, who is giving what kind of results. To judge that, you have to look at various things which we will go through later. But what we are doing right now is seeing the meaning of each house. Then, let's go to, okay, actually we didn't go to the combination point.
If 6th house is the house of enemies, is the 2nd house being resources your friend, house of friends?
Not necessarily friends. You can get some of your resources from friends. But friends are not necessarily a resource needed for doing things. Now, the 10th house is, that's the final karma. 2nd house is the resources, the starting point, the seed. 6th house is all the going through the to-do list, overcoming all the steps, obstacles in your way. And 10th house is finally what you achieve, what you do, what you discharge. That is the 10th house. It's called the karma sthana. The 9th house is called dharma sthana, and the 10th house is called karma sthana. Those two are extremely important houses. Extremely important. If anybody has the Lord of this house and the Lord of this house together in their chart, it's a great Raj Yoga. It's called Dharma Karmadhipati Yoga. Such a person will do his duty, he will discharge his duty sincerely and do his karma. His karma will basically involve dharma and his dharma will involve karma. So, either parivartana or being together.
In one of those houses, 9th or 10th?
No, any house.
Oh,
Any house. They are together in any house or looking at each other.
But in 9th and 10th itself,
It's even stronger. It's much stronger.
So
And
in that case, I'm sorry, who are they? Jupiter and
for this particular lagna, it is Jupiter and Saturn.
Saturn.
If you take this lagna, it will be these two planets. If you take this lagna,
But
it
in
will
this
be these two
it's
planets.
9th and 10th, so Jupiter and Saturn.
Jupiter and Saturn. But you are ahead. We don't know who
Okay,
owns
no,
this house.
just
We'll know later.
from my
Yeah. Now, the 10th house, I said, shows the karma that you do, the activities that you do. And then, Kama Trikona. Kama Trikona, like I said, it is why I should do something. Artha Trikona is what I do. Kama Trikona is why. Why should I do it after all? So for that, the seed of any desire or any why is, the drive has to be there first. To have any desire, if I have a class, and let's say I want to make money, I don't, but let's say somebody wants to teach something, yoga or something, and let's say somebody wants to make money. First, behind the desire, first the drive has to be there. To get any desire and to fulfill that desire, first you have to have a drive. So the 3rd house is the house of drive, the initiative. So initiative is the seed of desire, the seed of karma. So initiative is seen from the 3rd house. And then, so usually 3rd house shows one of the things that is attributed in literature is boldness, bravery. That is a form of initiative, a form of drive. So this shows the drive, the initiative. And then the 7th house, that shows the actual desires that you nurture. So first the seed is your initiative, and from the seed comes a particular desire. from that initiative, you form a desire. You want to do a particular thing. So 7th house shows the desire. And then the 11th house, that shows that is the culmination of your karma. The culmination of why analysis. What is the culmination? Some gains. So you have a drive, and from that you nurture a design, and at the end you get some gains. You get something. So 11th house is what you get. That is your gains. So this is actually a very important house. Along with 9 and 10, the 11th house is also an important house. That shows your gains. If there are bad influences on the 11th house, there will not be enough gains in life. But of course, there are so many different differences. When you say Lagna, it is your existence. It's not your material existence or money existence from the point of view of money. There is another Lagna called Arudha Lagna. So the 11th from that is very important to see somebody's gains, how much money somebody will have rather than spend. So 11th house from Arudha Lagna is important. We'll see what Arudha Lagna means a little later. But in general, 11th house is your gains.
Is in this case, initiative not born out of desire? Is desire not the seed for which the initiative is the action that you take? Or initiative is...
When I say seed, actually, each of them keeps contributing to the other. So it's not really, it doesn't start here and end here. It's a cyclical thing. You get you get gains, and then from that you get more initiative. So there is a cyclical relationship, but I just took one part of it. We can look at initiative as something from which everything begins. Without initiative, there is no gain, right?
The gain could be material gain as well as spiritual gain.
It can be any gain. We're not talking about what kind of gain. It depends on from which you are getting the house. If you see the 11th house from Jupiter, Jupiter shows intelligence. So it shows the gain for your intelligence. The 11th house from Moon shows the gain as far as your mind is concerned. So the gains of what? Of money, of peace, of intelligence, of knowledge. It all depends on, again, from where you are counting these houses, from Lagna or Moon or Sun, and also in what chart you are seeing these gains. If you are seeing in a chart called D24, which shows your learning, education, in that chart the gains can be basically learning. So the 11th house there shows only the gain of knowledge. And if you are looking in the 10th house, it shows, not 10th house, I'm sorry, in a chart called D10, which is the chart of career. In that chart, if you look at the 11th house, it gains in career. What are the gains that you have in your profession? What are the promotions you get? What is the extra money that you get, etc. So depending on the chart that you see and depending on what reference you are using, this gain can be mental, physical, financial, it can be any gain. But gain. Basically getting something, accumulating something. And then finally, the 4th, 8th and 12th houses, these show moksha, these show overcoming gains. So this is actually the final goal, the final purushartha. All other purusharthas are important, but to merge with the Paramatma, this is the purushartha that is of most interest to spiritual people, for example. This is important for spirituality. And first what you need to get moksha is, first you need some direction, some guidance. So the direction that you have, the gati, the direction, that is seen from the 4th house. In the meanings I mentioned it as 4th house as comfort. That is one of the meanings, but the root meaning is the direction. Of course, comfort is something that gives you direction. So comfort is one kind of direction, one aspect of direction. But the root meaning is direction. That is the 4th house. Gati, direction. And then 8th house is after you have direction, the next thing you need is effort. And this effort is not an effort like going through a to-do list to finish something. Here you don't know what you have to finish. What you have to finish here is being above desire. So this 8th house shows overcoming obstacles of the nature of being selfless, just doing tapasya. This 8th house is like tapasya. For example, tapasya yoga, there is a yoga called tapasya yoga, which shows a tapasvi, somebody who engages in tapas or tapasya. That involves the 8th house. So 8th house is the house of selfless effort. Effort without any desire, basically. That's what the 8th house shows. So the 4th house, the seed is direction, 8th house is effort, and finally 12th house is giving the desire. Well, when we say moksha, the final moksha of the Atma is one thing, but it also shows moksha at various levels. For example, if you overcome desire and if you give away some money, donate some money, that is one kind of moksha. Your money got moksha basically. Moksha basically means overcoming desire. So you overcame one part of desire. So any giving away is in the 12th house. 11th house is the house of getting and 12th house is the house of giving. Well, that's the negative way of putting it. It also shows losses.
It's the loss of
It shows loss also. When you don't want to give, you are robbed of something. When you just lose something, when you put something somewhere and forgot where you put it, that is also a loss. You lost it. So 12th house is the house of loss. It is also the house of giving things away, and finally it is the house of moksha.
The 12th house is occupied by Rahu, who is seeking for comfort and desire.
Yeah.
And how the 12th house will give away those comfort.
Yeah. So I want to teach an astrology class, and I bring somebody who doesn't know astrology, who let's say, who thinks astrology is wrong. If I get a scientist from UGC who thinks astrology is nonsense, he will just, instead of teaching you astrology, he will make you haters of astrology. Similarly, if you place Rahu in the 12th house, he will not give you moksha. He will confuse you. If you have Ketu in 12th house, for example, he will give moksha.
moksha in true sense or just in the true sense?
Because in a true sense, even though not in the truest sense.
No, in the sense that the person will not have rebirth. That's what.
For that, there are clear combinations given in literature. Also, Rasi is not the real chart for that. There is a chart called Navamsha. In that chart, you look at a planet called Atmakaraka. Because this moksha, the final giving away, is not to the body. It is to the Atma. Isn't that right? So, there is a planet called Atmakaraka. So, from that planet, you see the 12th house.
In the Navamsha.
Yeah. So, this 12th house can also contribute to it, but it may not give the final moksha. It can be one step basically.
Okay,
in the
Ketu
direction.
there in the south.
Yeah, Ketu there. For example, I have Ketu in the 12th house from Lagna, but I don't think I'll get moksha. But I make some progress, yeah. I make some progress. It takes millions of lives. So some progress. So these are the meanings of houses. Yes, go ahead.
1, 2, 3, 4, that decides the person.
Pardon me?
That defines the number 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, if a guy is oneself and if he has resources and if he is, initiative, then he gets comfort.
Well, just because you have resources doesn't mean you are going to do something. If the 6th house is weak, you will not go through your to-do list. You will not overcome the obstacles. You have a lot of resources, but you are so lazy to overcome your obstacles, you will not do anything. So, to achieve anything of any purushartha, not just one house decides it. All the houses have to have harmony. Depending on the level of harmony, the level of results that you get are decided. And we will slowly go through it, how to judge a particular house. We will go through it later. But suffices to say that a single house or a single set of houses don't decide anything. But of course, Lagna is the most important thing because that is who you are. So out of all the houses, if you have to choose one house that is most important, it is Lagna. Now, we will go through the next thing. The next thing is, there are some special classifications of houses. There are, let's say this as Lagna. Then, there are so-called kendras, or centers. So, this is a kendra, this is a kendra, this is a kendra, this is a kendra, and we are missing a line. So these are the houses. If you look here, 1, 4, 7, 10. These 4 houses are called kendras.
Trikonas have 5 houses, right?
Trikonas are 5 houses away, kendras are 4 houses away. Yeah. And then there are so-called trikonas. Trikonas are again Lagna, 5, 9. These 3 are trikonas. So from the Lagna, of course you can do this not just from Lagna, from moon also, from sun also. You can do this from any reference. From any reference, the houses 1, 4, 7 and 10 are called Kendras, 1, 5 and 9 are called Trikonas. These are Trikonas are also sometimes referred to just as Konas. Instead of calling Trikona, people just say Kona. And the English term is trine. For Kendra, the English term is quadrant. I think it's listed here. Maybe it's not. Yeah, it is. So Kendras are quadrants and Trikonas are trines. So these are very important houses. To see how lucky or successful somebody is, you have to pay a lot of attention to these houses. Excuse me. The 1, 5 and 9 houses, we have already seen them. The first house is who you are, the 5th house is your abilities, and the 9th house is because of those abilities, the rules that you have to obey. All these decide your Purva Punya. These are the houses of your blessings. Because somebody with great blessings from past lives, he will have a lot of abilities. He will be healthy, he will be happy, he will have a lot of abilities, and he will have high dharma to follow. On the other hand, somebody who does not have a lot of karma from the past lives, a lot of punya from past lives, he will have a very low existence, low abilities, and low dharma to follow. So these 3 houses, they show your blessings. So these are the houses of blessings and fruits, and they are ruled by Lakshmi. Basically, Lakshmi is in charge of these 3 houses. And as most of you would know, Narayana or Vishnu, he shows the effort that you put in. He shows your sustenance activities. And Lakshmi shows what you get out of it. She shows your blessings, the fruits that you get. Narayana shows what you do, and Lakshmi shows the fruits that you get out of it. So, as you can guess, the Kendras, the 4 houses that I mentioned in the beginning, they are Vishnu sthanas. Why? Lagna is again who you are. 4th house is the direction that you have for all your activities. The 7th house is the desires that you nurture, and the 10th house is the karma that you do. So all these things together decide what activities you do, your sustenance activities. So those houses are ruled by Kendras. According to Parasara, Kendra Sthanam, Kendra Vishnu Sthanam Sya, there is a stanza in a chapter called Raj Yoga. According to that, Kendras are Vishnu Sthanas and Trikonas are Lakshmi Sthanas. And there is a special combination called Raj Yoga. If the planet owning a Kendra and a planet owning a Trikona join together in a house, it's called a Raj Yoga. What that means is, your efforts and the fruits that you are getting out of them, there is a synergy between them. In other words, if the Kendra Lord and Trikona Lord are together, that means Vishnu and Lakshmi are joining in your chart, in that particular chart, in that particular house. So when Vishnu and Lakshmi are joining, are together, that results in great prosperity.
Now, is that, when you say yoga, are you thinking of the time? Is that the entire lifetime?
It's for entire life. It's for entire life. The only thing is, when that yoga gives its results in your life, this depends on dashas, etc. Depending on when the dashas of those planets come, you will experience the results of that yoga. And another point I want to mention is, this yoga doesn't necessarily mean money or power or being a great political leader. Those are one aspect of it. This can also make somebody a great spiritual leader. It basically shows being an achiever in some area of life. What area of life and what is the level of achievement? There are other factors which help you judge it, which were taught by Parasara in a chapter called Raj Yoga in his book Parasara Horasara. We'll slowly go through them, but for now remember that Kendras and Trikonas are very important houses. If Trikonas are strong, that person gets things easily. If Kendras are strong, that person is a doer. Kendras make somebody a doer, and Trikonas make somebody a blessed person. And now, there are 3 other houses. There are 4 other houses called Upachayas, 3, 6, 10 and 11. I will talk about them at a later point of time, but for now I will say that they show accumulation and growth. Those are the houses important for growth. And then there are 3 houses called 6, 8 and 12. They are called Dusthanas or Triksthanas. 6, 8 and 12. Why? Because 6th house shows overcoming obstacles, going through your to-do list. And 8th house shows effort, and overcoming desire and putting in a lot of effort. And then The 12th house shows loss or giving away something. These are good in a way too, but these are called dusthanas because they show negative things. So if these houses are strong, that person will be unlucky. It can also mean that he will be always working hard. There are thumb rules. Some astrologers, when you take a horoscope to a particular to an astrologer who does not know Shastra very well, if he sees all the planets placed in dusthanas, he will write it as, oh, he's so unlucky. But unlucky is just one possibility. If all the planets are dusthanas, pardon me?
12th house being the moksha.
It is also the house of giving away, also the house of expenditure. So, if all the planets are showing expenses, working hard, overcoming desires and struggling, then people will think you are not lucky. But the thing is, you don't really decide luck based on that. For example, in my chart, I have 5 planets in Dusthana. Actually, 7 planets in Dusthana. Only Sun and Jupiter are in other houses. So I have 7 out of 9 planets in Dusthana, 6, 8 and 12 houses. So when my father was also a very good astrologer, but when my mother asked him to take my horoscope to an astrologer, he took the horoscope to an astrologer, a well-known astrologer in Hyderabad. Actually 2 or 3 different astrologers. All of them said, oh, he's very unlucky. He will probably pass BA with some difficulty. But by the age of 11, I had 3 BA degrees, 2 in Sanskrit, 1 in Hindi. I was Sanskrit Bhasha Kovida by the age of 11. And then I was state first in intermediate. I went to IIT Madras. Basically, I did okay. But when you look at Dusthanas, if you see 7 out of 9 planets being in Dusthanas, the person, he just going by thumb rule, he said, oh, he's so unlucky. He'll probably be a teacher. That he judged rightly. He said he will pass BA with some difficulty and then he'll become a teacher. But my father was very clear that I'll be an engineer based on some other calculations. He was sure that I'll be an engineer, and he was sure that I'll be very lucky. Actually, when I was in intermediate, the +2 or higher secondary school, when I wanted to take, there is an engineering entrance called MSET, engineering entrance for engineering and medical common entrance examination, which is given in the state of AP. If you want to become an engineer, go to an engineering college in AP. You take the test. My father said, why do you want to waste my money? You will get to IIT. Because I was also writing IIT entrance exam. And my father said, you will get it. You will become an engineer. Just forget it. Do not waste my money by applying for MSET. Of course, I did not have the same confidence that he had. And if you are just unlucky for 5 minutes when you are writing IIT entrance, you can just lose it. Just with 5 marks, you can lose the whole test. So I didn't take any chance. I went through it. But the thing is, he was so confident because he does not go by thumb rules. He was so confident that I will become an engineer and I will do okay in life. But that other astrologer, actually 2 or 3 different astrologers, they just went by thumb rules. So what I want to mention a postscript on this Dusthanas is, they are not necessarily they are not necessarily bad. Dusthanas basically show undesirable things for most people. But working hard, always struggling, always engaging in effort, that may actually not be a bad thing. And more importantly, another important factor is, in my case, all the planets being in Dusthanas was in Rashi chart, which is the chart of physical existence. So that can show physically always working hard. But when it comes to careers, when it comes to learning, there are different charts that you have to look at. Unfortunately, 80 or 85% of astrologers in India don't even make those charts. They just make Rashi and Navamsha. And if you look at those charts, I have actually decent charts. Even if you go by thumb rules, you will actually do okay. You will make decent predictions. And this guy just went through Rashi chart and looked at all activities in life, and then he made a mistake. So what I want to say is, first thing, don't look at Dusthanas negatively. Don't be afraid. If you find that in your own horoscope, you find a lot of planets in Dusthanas, don't be scared because of it. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Whether those planets do good or bad, you have to judge based on who those planets are, who they are with, who are the planets influencing them, who is their lord, what is the relationship, who are the karakas. Karakas are like project managers. What is the relationship between their managers and project managers? So based on all those things, you draw a final judgment. And in the next several classes, we will go through that process. But for now, remember that Dusthana 6, 8 and 12 are bad houses, are negative houses. And then we will go through the own house. I said so many times, about a planet's own house, right? So now time has come to see what is an own house of a planet, and what are exaltation or ucha houses, what are nicha houses, and so on. So, by this time, all of you must know all of you should know the signs by name. This is Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, and so on. If you don't, please go through those names. Get by heart both English names as well as Sanskrit names. Mesha, Vrishabha, Mithuna, and so on. Now, the rulership, there is a story that makes it easier for you to remember these rulerships. The story is, yes?
Sorry, I have a question. When we are starting from the second place, Aries, I mean, what was the reason behind
This is not second place. There is no second place. Actually, from what Parashara said, he probably at the time he made charts like this. Just 12 houses. We don't really know exactly how they made charts. From the description that he gave, it was either this or this, and people use this. This is just a convention. Some people actually make this as Aries and go backward. Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and so on. There are so many different ways of making charts. I went through the East Indian chart in the first class. There are like 3 or 4 different variations. This is just one convention. So this is Aries. Yeah. It doesn't really matter. This is just a visual representation of the data. All you want to know is where different planets are. So, this is Mesha. Anyway, the story is, at one point of time, the zodiac was divided into 2 parts, the upper part and the lower part, the northern part and the southern part, and then moon owned all these houses and sun owned all these houses. They just had all the houses to themselves. Other planets were unlucky, they didn't have any houses. And then all the planets were born, and they started fighting. Hey, I want a house too. Then property dispute, yeah. Just like a big zamindar or in a feudal society distributing his land to all the peasants, sun and moon, the luminaries, they distributed all the houses to different planets. And the way it worked out is, out of all the signs that moon owned, he gave one sign to a planet, sun gave one sign to the same planet. So it was like moon gave this, sun gave this to one planet. Moon gave this, sun gave this to one planet. So another planet has these 2 houses. Moon gave this, sun gave this. So another planet has these 2 houses. Another planet has these 2 houses. Another planet has these 2 houses. So symmetrically, moon and sun gave away one house each to each planet. And the order of giving was based on the distance from sun. So the one who is, so moon basically kept this. Sun kept this. And then who is closest to sun? Mercury. So, Mercury got these 2 houses. This from moon, this from sun. And then next planet, who? Venus. He got these 2 signs. Then, Earth, but Earth is not a planet. So who? Mars. So Mars has these 2 signs. Then, Jupiter. Finally, Saturn. So this is how moon and sun distributed their houses to all the planets. And now, all the planets have 2 houses each. Sun and moon are left with 1 house. But that happens. So if you take down this picture in your notes and stare at it for a while, you will just remember it. Try to remember it and try to just look at a chart and say whose house is it, and then go back and verify it. Because only by practice it becomes natural. After some time, I basically want all of you to immediately answer me when I say whose house is this. You should immediately say Jupiter. You should know this thing should be like common sense to you, and it will become with a little bit of practice.
It's easy that they are all lined up also.
Yes, it makes it so much easy. Now, when you say this is easy, now comes the not so easy part. This is exaltation. Actually, before I go to exaltation, there is a house called Mula Trikona. There is a so-called Mula Trikona. I'm not actually sure of how that word came, what is the meaning. If I find out, I'll tell you. But it's just referred to as Mula Trikona in the literature. Each planet, out of the houses that it owns, one house becomes the Mula Trikona. So I'll list it here. For Jupiter, this is the Mula Trikona. For Mercury, this is the Mula Trikona. For Venus, this is the Mula Trikona. For Moon, there is a difference. He is not happy with his house. He takes his Mula Trikona elsewhere. He goes to Venus and takes his Mula Trikona there. And then, for Saturn, this is the Mula Trikona. Did I miss anybody? Mars. Sun, this. I missed Sun. Sun, Aries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So these are the Mula Trikonas. So Mula Trikona. Mars, Aries. So basically, Mula Trikona is that house which the planet particularly likes, which is stronger than the other house that it wants.
How the planet likes.
Not actually like, where the planet is stronger. Yeah. Talking about life, actually there is an analogy. I'll give the analogy after I go through Ucha and Nicha Rasis also. So actually I'll not arrange it, I'll write another.
So for instance, the Mula Trikona of Venus is
Tula. Libra.
So it's Libra. So it prefers Libra over Taurus.
Yeah, it is stronger in Libra.
It is stronger in Libra.
Yeah. Yeah.
Between the two houses.
Right. Now, in addition to the own sign and Mula Trikona, another thing that you will eventually have to remember is a sign called exaltation sign. It is also called Ucha Rasi. And the opposite is, there is a sign called debilitation sign or Nicha Rasi. Each planet is exalted in a particular sign, which is basically good, and each planet is debilitated in a sign, which basically means bad. Now, I'll write down the exaltation signs first. The exaltation sign of Mars is here, of Jupiter is here, of Moon is here, of Venus is here, of Mercury is here, I forgot Sun is here, Saturn is here. These are the exaltation signs. And if you look at the table that I gave, in each sign there is a particular point. For example, if you look under Sun and exaltation Rasi, I said Aries and I said 10 degrees in brackets. If you see the table, that means exactly at that point he is deeply exalted. That is the point where the exaltation is maximum. And now, if you take down these two pictures, I'll give an analogy and also try to give some basis behind these choices. Because in astrology, everything comes from some common sense. There are basic axioms and everything is derived from it. All these things are not just taken for granted. There is some logic behind it. So I'll try to shed some light. But before that, let me give the analogy. For each planet, one house is like your own house. You are basically comfortable, you are relaxed in your house. So the planet, when it's in one house, is relaxed. But Mula Trikona is like office. It's basically you are more formal there. You do your duty. You are duty minded. Whatever your duty is, whatever your results you are supposed to give, you just give them very strictly. So you are not relaxed. So one house is like a place where you are relaxed, your own house, and Mula Trikona is like an office. And then finally exaltation sign is like a place where you are excited to be. It's like your favorite party. A satsang for you people. It's like your favorite satsang.
What our home office is like?
Mercury has home office, yeah. Mercury has home office. Working from home. He's a computer, Mercury shows computer engineer. Now, the debilitation, the opposite of exaltation, is like, the Nicha Rasi is basically like a party that you hate but you have to be there. It's like the party that you hate the most, and exaltation sign is like the party that you love the most. You are not comfortable or relaxed there like in your own house, or you are not formal and duty minded like in your office, but you are just excited. You are very happy to be there. That's exaltation sign. And now let's see why these signs came for these planets. Let's start with, Jupiter, because he's the planet of astrology. He's a very auspicious planet. If you look at Jupiter, actually before we go through that, I have to say one thing. I told you that there are meanings of various houses, right, counted from Lagna. When you are looking at just planets and signs, there are also meanings given to each sign. We take Aries as the Lagna for the Kalapurusha, for the natural Kalapurusha. Aries is the Lagna, so this is the first house of the natural zodiac. Not in anybody's chart, anybody's horoscope, but in the natural zodiac, this is the first house. This is the second house. This is the third house and so on. So what this shows is, this is the first house. What is first house?
Aries.
Aries. But Aries basically shows self. And then this shows resources. This shows desire, drive, etc. And this shows your direction and comfort. This shows your ability and so on. So these are, and what does the ninth house show? Dharma. What does the 12th house show?
Moksha.
Giving. Moksha. It shows giving. So Jupiter, his houses are Dharma and Moksha. Duty, being duty minded, doing your duty, your principles, and also giving things. Because he is Brahmin, he doesn't want to accumulate things. He wants to give things. So for that reason, Jupiter has these two houses as his own houses. But out of these two houses, Sagittarius or Dhanus is his Mula Trikona, because moksha or giving things away is not really his duty. He is happy doing it. He is comfortable doing it because that's his natural inclination, being a very sattvic Brahmin. But his duty is to keep dharma in the society. Jupiter is also Indra's Purohit. He is the priest of Indra. So he is like a priest in a king's court. When somebody does a bad thing, he say, oh, okay, hang that person. So he has to be very strict there. So Jupiter in Pisces is like a rishi who is relaxed and who is doing puja for moksha, who is doing tapasya for moksha. That is what Jupiter in Pisces is like. But Jupiter in this house is like a Raj Purohit. He is like a Purohita or priest in a king's court. He is very duty minded. So here what Jupiter does is, whatever dharma is, he wants to uphold that dharma. So that is the importance. And more than all this, because Jupiter wants to give moksha, he wants to give direction. He wants to give you a gati. He is the guru. Jupiter is the guru. He is your intelligence. So he wants to give gati to you. So because of that, that is the thing that he likes doing the most. Giving direction to somebody's spiritual pursuit is his favorite party. So he is exalted or excited in the fourth house of the natural zodiac, which shows the direction, which shows the peace and direction in your spiritual pursuit. And similarly, if you look at, for example, let's take Venus. Okay, let's take Venus. Pardon me? When you want to think about Venus, think of Parshurama. Venus is happiness, but passionate happiness. Venus is passionate. He is a Rajasic Graha. If you look at the table I gave yesterday, Jupiter is Sattvic, but Jupiter is Rajasic. He is the teacher of demons. So, if you look at, so he is also a Brahmin. And his own houses are second house and seventh house. The second house is the house of resources. So Jupiter, the teacher of gods, is not so concerned about resources. Resources come naturally to him. He is more bothered about his dharma and giving things. But Venus, being the teacher of demons, he is more bothered about resources, desires. So whatever you do comes with those two things. So the duties as the teacher of demons, what was given to him, the duty is desires. He has to create desire in people because he rules in enjoyment, like I said. Out of all the governing things of planets, Jupiter governs wisdom and discretion, but Jupiter governs enjoyment. And for enjoyment, desire is, Venus. For that, desire is important. To have the spirit of enjoyment, desire is the most important thing. So the official job allotted to Venus is to create desire in people. So the seventh house of desire is his Mula Trikona. That is his job. That is his office. So if in anybody's chart, if he doesn't have strong desires, if he doesn't want to get married, there is some restriction to Venus. Venus gives the desires, he makes people get married and so on. Not just marriage, desire related to marriage. He gives various desires, but also marriage. Venus is the Karaka, the significator for marriage. So for him, this is the Mula Trikona. But you also have to realize that these are the houses, these are the jobs given to Venus by the Creator. But Venus is a great tapasvi. He's such a great tapasvi that Shiva was so happy with him. Shiva gave him the Sanjeevani mantra to make somebody who dies live again. He's the only one who has that mantra. He's a great tapasvi. He did tapasya standing upside down. He's a great tapasvi, even though he advises the demons, because he wants to keep them in control, not because he likes demons, but he wants to guide the demons so that they don't destroy the world too much. He wants to keep them in check, just like our own enjoyment, spirit of enjoyment keeps all the demons within us in check. We enjoy, but we are not doing really anything destructive. Just like that, Venus keeps demons in check. So he does all these things as his duty, but what he really likes is moksha. Even though he is looked upon negatively as a Rajasic Graha, he wants moksha too. The only thing is he wants it in a Rajasic way, like Parshurama. He does not stand for contentment, lax contentment. He stands for the spiritual rapture, the ecstasy. He stands for the Rajasic variation of the same thing, just like Parshurama. So for Venus, the exaltation sign is the 12th house of moksha. He is happy to be there. He is excited to be there. Jupiter is not excited to be there. Jupiter is excited to give you direction. He is happy to be there. He is contented to be there. One house is like a place where you are contented, you are relaxed. Venus is not relaxed when he is pursuing moksha. He is excited. That is his dream. So like this, you can look at various planets and what the own house, what the monotrikona, what the exaltation stand for. You can look at the meanings of houses in the natural zodiac, and you can get some sense of what the planets stand for. And if you really understand what each planet stands for, that will help you later in understanding what they mean in a particular horoscope. Otherwise, if you are doing astrology just by thumb rules, you can be successful, but you will not really appreciate it to the maximum. If you understand the real philosophical foundation, you will understand all the rules even more, because there is so much depth at various levels in all the rules given in astrology as well as all our literature, Puranas, astrology, all the Vedic literature. And the order of importance, which is under the table, is Monotrikona Rasi, Exaltation Rasi, Own Rasi. So if a planet is if you are comparing two planets, you want to see who is stronger. A planet in his Monotrikona is the strongest, because he is not at a party, he is at an office. So he is obliged to give the result. It is his duty. So Monotrikona planet is stronger, and then Exaltation planet is stronger, and then Own sign is stronger. This is the order of strength. After Exaltation comes Own sign, and then Adhimitra Rasi, basically being in best friends. If you are not in your own house, at least you are in a good friend's house. So that is good. And then comes Mitra Rasi, you are in a friend's house. And then Samarasi, you are at least not in an enemy's house, you are in a neutral person's house. And then Shatru Rasi, well, at least not a bad enemy, you are just an enemy. And finally you are at Shatru Rasi, the worst enemy's house. That is the worst place to be in the planet house. Now, in the next 10 minutes, I will talk about the so-called drishti. In English, we call it aspect. The English word in English language textbooks, if you read them, the word is aspect.
You want to discuss about debilitation?
Debilitation is, good point. I didn't mention debilitation. Debilitation, or like I said, that's the worst party. That comes in the opposite sign. If you, for example, for Mars, what was, not Mars, that's a Jupiter. What was the exaltation sign of Jupiter? This is Monotrikona. Dhanu is Monotrikona. So for Jupiter, the exaltation sign is Cancer, and the debilitation sign is the one opposite it. So always take the 7 from there. The opposite sign, that will be the debilitation sign. So for Jupiter, Capricorn is the debilitation sign. You can derive it for all other planets in the same way. And why is Jupiter debilitated in 10th house? 10th house is the house of karma, and this particular sign is ruled by Saturn, who is a tamasic planet. So 10th house of the natural zodiac, Capricorn, it shows tamasic karma. And Jupiter, he wants to give direction to people. He wants to define people's dharma. He is a Purohit. He is not an army leader or a mantri. So he does not want to do the karma. He does not, especially tamasic karma of Saturn. He is not happy doing it. He does it if he has to do it, but he is not comfortable about it. So Jupiter is debilitated in the 10th house of the natural zodiac, in the sign of Saturn. Now, aspects. There are two kinds of aspects, two kinds of drishti given by Parasara. One is called Graha Drishti and the other is called Rasi Drishti. And 80% of the astrologers in India today have forgotten Rasi Drishti. They don't use Rasi Drishti at all. They just use Graha Drishti. But I have to mention that when Parasara taught Drishti, first he taught Rasi Drishti. Then he mentioned Graha Drishti. So Rasi Drishti is actually more important than Graha Drishti. But nevertheless, I'll cover Graha Drishti first in the order in which people do it today, not in the order in which Parasara did it. Graha Drishti basically stands for the desire of the planet. If a planet has Graha Drishti on a particular house, what it means is that planet wants to get involved in that house matters. He has an eye on that. He wants to do something about it. It shows the desire of the planet. So from any planet, let's say Jupiter is here. For any planet, what is the seventh house from that planet? It's a desire. We earlier mentioned that the houses, in the meaning of houses, the seventh house is the middle point of the Kama Trikona and that stands for desire. So when you look at seventh from Jupiter, that is Jupiter's desire. When you look at seventh, let's say Mars is here. When you look at seventh from Mars, this is desire of Mars.
But isn't it also debilitation?
We don't care now, debilitation, exaltation. We don't care about that. The seventh from any planet is the desire of that planet. Seventh from Jupiter is desire of your intelligence. Seventh from Mars is the desire of your initiative, your aggressive spirit. And the seventh from Venus is the desire of your spirit of enjoyment. So like that, from every planet, the seventh house shows the desire relating to that planet. So naturally, will the planet aspect that house? Will it have a drishti on that house? Yes. So every planet has Graha Drishti on the seventh house from it, simply because that is the desire of that planet. And Graha Drishti is basically desire. And then Jupiter has additional desires. Jupiter is the intelligence. He has additional desire. He looks at the fifth house from him and the ninth house. Fifth and ninth. He wants to give you abilities and then he wants to decide your dharma. So Jupiter has these two additional drishtis. And then Rahu. Rahu also has the same drishti. This is again controversial because Parasara did not explicitly mention it, but other classics do mention it. Parasara left out Rahu Ketu in lot of details. There are other classics which mention it. So some astrologers take these, I take them, but if you want you may not take them, but several people take them. Rahu has fifth, ninth and second drishti. Again Rahu is also thinking about giving abilities and defining your dharma, but he wants to define it in a wrong way. He is the opposite of Jupiter. He wants to, yes.
In the previous diagram,
Yeah.
when the sun and moon are dividing the planets,
Yeah, dividing the zodiac.
Rahu.
Yeah. Yes, good point. I'll mention them in a later class. I'll leave it for today. His point is when sun and moon gave away their signs, their rasis to planets to share, what happened to Rahu and Ketu? First they were ignored. So distribution went on nicely. Then went wrong.
Sun and moon, they don't like Rahu.
Yeah, but the thing is later, that's right, good point. But later Rahu and Ketu said, hey, we want them too. So some other people basically shared their houses without sun and moon's permission. So there are, Saturn shared one of his houses.
Subletting.
Yeah, subleasing. So Saturn gave one of his houses, Kumbha to Rahu, and Mars gave one of his houses, Vrishchika or Scorpio to Ketu. I'll mention it in a later class. Is it listed here? Yeah, it is listed in the table, so you can go through the table also. And then there are exaltation and debilitation signs also given for Rahu and Ketu, but again there is controversy, and there are actually two versions of it. They are more advanced. I'll mention them in a later class. We'll ignore Rahu Ketu for now. And aspect, Rahu also wants to define people's dharma, but he wants to define dharma in an adharmic way. He wants people to do adharma. He is basically a Rakshasa. Jupiter is the teacher of gods, and he is a Rakshasa. So they are always fighting with each other. He stands for dharma, he stands for adharma. And again, even for adharma, the house is ninth house. But if there are bad influences on ninth house, it shows adharma. If there are good influences on the ninth house, it shows dharma. So Rahu also looks at fifth and ninth house, but in addition, he is not content with influencing the abilities and dharma, he wants to also have good resources. Jupiter doesn't care about resources. He thinks, if I have good dharma, if I have good abilities, all the resources will automatically be arranged for me. He doesn't care. But Rahu is more practical, more Rakshasa-like. So he looks at resources first. So he has an eye on resources also. He looks at the second house also.
So, colloquially, I've heard the term Vakradrishti.
Yeah?
Somebody having a Vakradrishti at that.
Yeah. Vakradrishti basically is looking at something when you are going backward. Not when you are going forward, but when you are going backward. Sometimes planets are going backwards. So they have Vakradrishti. In the case of Rahu and Ketu, they are always going backward. They are never going in the right way. So they always have a Vakradrishti.
So this fifth, ninth and second aspect, you should count in the reverse direction?
No, it's the right direction. Yeah,
Okay.
it's in the right direction. Because he is going backward, the definition of houses doesn't change. Still second house counted in the right way becomes resources needed for Rahu. So even though he's going backwards, he's intelligent enough to know which is his resources. Which is the resources needed for his desires and for his adharma karma. So he will be looking at the correct house only. And then Mars has additional, apart from the 7th house aspect that every planet has, Mars has an aspect on 4th and 8th houses. So Mars is essentially your spirit of doing things. He's the initiative, drive, the burning drive within you. So that burning drive basically needs some direction. So he has a strong desire to get good direction. And he has a strong desire to basically put in effort. There is so much burning energy in Mars that he wants to put in effort. So he aspects the 4th and 8th houses. And Shani, he looks at 3rd and 10th houses. Shani, like I said, he's the spirit of hard work within you. The discipline and hard work. So what he needs is, he needs some drive, some initiative. So he looks at the 3rd house. If you give him some initiative to that hard work will go on. So he has a special interest, special desire relating to initiative and also relating to the final karma. Whatever he is doing, he wants that hard work to be useful. So he looks at the 3rd and 10th houses. So these are the graha drishtis of various planets. These are the aspects that the planets have. In addition, I will not go through it today. I will go through it in the next class. This weird picture that I have here, we will go through it in the next class. What that shows is, these are not desires that planets have. These are based on where the planets are, based on the Rashi a planet is in, it will be looking at certain houses automatically. These are fixed based on the Rashi Chakra. Don't depend on which planet is looking, irrespective of who is looking. If I am living in this house, I keep meeting my neighbor, for example, or somebody in the next street, somebody who lives near the bus stop where I take a bus every day. So I keep meeting those people. So I have some influence on them. So Rashi Drishti is basically some influence that the planets have on various houses because of their placement. Because of their proximity and placement, they have certain influence on certain matters. So those influences are seen from Rashi Drishti, and Graha Drishti does not necessarily show having an influence. The Graha Drishti that we mentioned, the 7th house and these additional houses, they only show the desire to influence. If Jupiter is here, he wants to influence the matters of this house. Whatever this house is, he really wants to influence the matters of this house. Whether he can influence or not depends on where he is, whether he has Rashi Drishti also or not. And also there is the so-called Argada, that also decides whether he can influence or not. So we'll go through them in the next class, but those are fixed aspects based on where you are. And the aspect that we talk about now is the aspect based on who you are, what your desires are, which are specific to who you are. So with that, I will end today's class, and let me stop the recording. I have a question. The next class, how many of you will be here for the Memorial Day weekend? How many of you want to have the class? Okay. How many of you will not be there and don't want to have the class?
I will not be there, but it's up to you to...
Okay, how many of you will not be there?